This video is going to be my official reaction to the Baltimore Ravens 2025 NFL Draft, one that'll clearly take some time to properly evaluate. I will do so here in as balanced a fashion as possible. Reason for me to try to accomplish that now is that the decisions or the possibilities are they're fresh in our minds. We know who was on the board when certain guys were selected, and it could make those actual picks that occurred more valuable eventually if you recognize and we determine the talent that was on the board when the Ravens made what could be an unpopular pick with other high quality options left. Basically, we may have eschewed an easy route to improve a certain position, but in the end made the better decision. So we'll start off with the Ravens start off with tremendous amount of momentum. It took a while to get that started. Thursday, obviously choosing late in round one, Malaki Starks. Talk about him in specifics a little bit, and then more so later. He's a guy that had been mocked to the Ravens in that spot for a large portion of the pre-draft process. Safety from Georgia has a lot to offer. He'll be a contributor from day one. Clearly, he will move around. He can move around and provide a lot of versatility with guys like Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, and also Ardarius Washington, players who already know the defense, already know how to fit into the defense, and already have shown the ability to move around and make plays in multiple locations. And then in round two, just a tremendous gift. I know there's other words that could apply also: surprise, shock. The Ravens get an opportunity to take Mike Green, someone who multiple teams must have just not had on their board. I doubt if teams, the Ravens included, had a second round grade on him, but nonetheless, Baltimore signed up for it. Tremendous talent, first of all. The most talented player we took in this draft by far. Green provides, first of all, a ton of activity. He's violent. He's got great closing speed. All of those things just increase the range and the suffocating nature of the Ravens defense. I think Baltimore gets great long-term potential with Mike Green, but also immediate boost to their pass rush. He's someone who's, I think, also better against the run than has been presented. I talked about that a little bit in a video that I did a couple of weeks ago about the top 10 or top 12 edge rushers in this draft. Mike Green defines this draft at this point in time for me because without him, things look very different overall. Although, if we didn't make this selection of Mike Green at, I think it was 59, we certainly would have picked or would have had opportunities to take another really talented player that's still out there on the board. There was multiple at that time. These two picks provide immediate returns, obviously, and they give stability to a defense, or it's a talent infusion, first of all. Both of them have closing speed. Stark's testing numbers aren't fantastic, but he plays faster than those numbers. When you watch the film of him, there's no concern about him being, quote, slow in any way, shape, or form. They've both got great range, and they're bringing those gifts to a side of the ball defense that's already very gifted. It gives Zach Orr a ton of options in the secondary. Humphrey is the primary piece, or at least in 2024, he was the primary piece as a hinge point, meaning he can go from outside corner to nickel. He can cover well in both of those locations, also be a factor against the run. Hamilton and Ardarius as the safeties together. Look, they already played well together in 2024. They know the defense, they know the checks, and have encountered problems and already come up with solutions for them. Starks just adds to that flavor, really. Regardless of what we think of him, where he'll be used, middle of the field free safety, nickel defender. He does cover really well in man from a slot position, particularly when he has high safety help. So I just think he adds versatility to the defense. Mike Green, extremely high level guy. I mean, as a pass rusher, he is in line with Abdul Carter. I don't mean equivalent or better than. Maybe he's not as lightning quick as Carter on an outside move, but the speed rush that Green establishes against tackles, it's dangerous and it's scary. Meaning, as a tackle, once you've encountered it, maybe gotten beat by it, you now have to deal with it consistently, and that just opens up the complementary moves. I think Green has an extremely diverse set of moves as a pass rusher. Him and Donovan Ezeraku, to me, had the most diversity of moves that they can execute against high-level competition. The talent that he brings, the explosiveness, really he levels up the pass rush by at least one level, maybe two. I am a huge fan of what we did here. I'm just talking about the play on the field for Mike Green, all right? For these two, and him combined with Starks, they're both going to play a ton of snaps. Expect them to improve individually over the course of 2025, and then heading into their second years of 2026. I mean, we're in a great position with what we drafted there on defense. Having said that, there was some frustration for me during those picks and thereafter with how we navigated the third round and more so in the fourth and beyond. That turn at the end of the fourth round with taking Teddy Buchanan, who's a good player, someone that I respect, and I actually did scout him. You can go look at. I'll link it up in the description. You can go look at the dates that I upload film, which is one of the reasons why I did the Google Drive the way that I did, is so that people could see the dates I uploaded. I think it was two and a half weeks ago, watching film of Noah Williams. Saw enough plays of Buchanan to say, okay, this is a good football player. I think I saved up 6 or maybe 8 plays, but that whole situation was frustrating to me. Taking Buchanan at the fourth, clearly, in my opinion at least, he's going to be there at 136, maybe even be there the next round when we pick. But I thought that it was a clear indication that we didn't expect Mike Green to be there, meaning we anticipated the board working out in a way that we took O-line or D tackle in round 2. And then when Green was available, that changed everything. Regardless of whether we think he should have been taken in the first round, from a talent standpoint, he should have. I think the Ravens were a little caught off guard in that way, and I have no idea if they admitted to that or talked about it at all. There's just no way that you have a late round 2 grade on Mike Green and expect him to be there at all. All right, so getting into how we addressed offensive line. I do really like the Emory Jones pick, and we did also grab Carson Vinson, the tackle from I think it's Alabama A&M HBU school. HBCU school. He's got a ton of physical tools and ability. So the Ravens took 2 offensive linemen there, who you would project to not start this year. We ended up taking a third in the 7th round later on, and also walked away from some chances to upgrade the defensive tackle spot. That was one of the surprises for me, and that was why when we did move away from picks in round 4, I really have to kind of detach that portion of the draft from rounds 1 and 2. And again, it's similar to the 2024 draft, if you ask me. So, talking about Starks and Green real quick individually, Starks covers well in man. He's not just a quote safety. He covers well, particularly on crossers and in breaking routes. Georgia used him a lot on third downs and press man. He has some very good film of staying underneath routes and forcing the quarterback to really have a low angle or no angle throw, meaning when there's safety help over the top for him and he's covering in man, he knows how to stay underneath of it and not give the quarterback anywhere to throw the ball because there's a safety sitting over the top. I do think he plays into the boundary as a safety against the run. He's not very good. The constricted space into the boundary probably suits him better. But if you're going to play boundary side safety in the NFL, you're going to see tackling situations. That is a concern for me, to be honest with you. I saw multiple examples of poor tackling in space. He kind of gets distracted or gets pulled down by initial action away from him, and then quarterback boot back to his side. Um, Possible use as a middle of the field safety. That might be his best starting point in the NFL, but from a half field safety spot, he's great at seeing the routes and the quarterback timing. He's got this ability, we talked about in our Discord a lot. He's got this ability to, we call it ping pong his eyes. Basically, he can stay in the right place horizontally and laterally in terms of depth, but also take his eyes and look to the side real quick to see the route, what's happening, but then smoothly, quickly get his eyes back to the quarterback and see if the ball's going to be thrown. He to me, I found myself watching him in zone thinking, thank God, that we drafted someone who's not going to just stare at the quarterback with no awareness of the routes at all. And when you get the end zone angle of film, whether it's college film or the NFL, you can see the guy's helmet as a DB, as an inside linebacker, and you'll constantly see his helmet turn and ping pong back and forth to the routes and multiple routes. In fact, I do think he plays into the boundary. I haven't seen a ton of breaks on the ball from him as a safety in zone. You'd have the great interception this year against Clemson. I think in the fourth quarter of week 1. I'm sure that his awareness level is right in line with what the Ravens expect. He's extremely aware, both pre and post snap. I expect him to kind of be a guy that's not targeted because he'll take away routes by just being in great position. And look, he does have great ball skills. It's not that that's an issue at all. It's just that I wouldn't expect him to get 3 or 4 interceptions in year 1 because he'll be in such great position and coverage that the ball just simply won't be thrown there. In essence, I think he's a veteran intelligence level football player already. His global football awareness is high, and he's also acutely prepared and sharp in coverage situations. I think he identifies routes and adjusts to them based on the specific coverage scheme on that play. Very adaptable, smart, long, and I think he plays faster than that 4. I think it was 4.50 would indicate. Having said all that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the tackling. Certainly, he had 77 tackles in 2024, almost 200 for his career. I don't think he's a consistent tackler at safety in the NFL like a Kyle Hamilton or some of the. There's no Kyle Hamiltons, but there's a ton of missed tackles on film here, guys. It's Alabama, Georgia Tech. It's on film. It gives me concern against premier quarterbacks or let alone running backs out in space. You're welcome to not share those concerns or ignore them if you want. They are there on film to see a few of. Now I will say this: a few of his missed tackles were on the correct leverage side, meaning he's feeding the ball carrier back into help. But as a first round drafted safety, for me, I do have serious questions about his tackling. Showed up on film in the SEC. I get it. We're supposed to be celebrating the Ravens picks, but I can't lie to you and not point it out when it's there on tape. So Mike Green, versatile, more versatile than given credit for. He doesn't ever drop into pass coverage, however, but powerful. 6'5", 6'4", 6'5" ish, 245, 250, very precise moves. He executes them instantly. I think Chuck Smith's going to have a lot of fun with this guy. I think if Chuck Smith is a guy that normally improves a pass rusher by 7% in year 1 or 8% or in some cases 10%, what the heck's he going to do with Mike Green? I mean, it's all there. I don't have concerns about the size. There's plenty of guys at his size that are succeeding in the NFL, that are in the Hall of Fame, that make all pro teams. I think he upgrades, obviously, our outside linebacker room immediately. Maybe pushes someone out, an Ojabo, an Adisa Isaac, who wouldn't make sense because we drafted him last year. But to get him where you did, right? It just caps off the draft from an athletic standpoint, potential standpoint. He's going to make impact plays, sacks, strip sacks, pressure the quarterback. He changes the tone and tenor of the defense. I think really, to be honest with you, he's the leadoff hitter for this 2025 draft. I know Starks went first, and Green didn't go until late round 2. He just has the ability to impact the game in 2025 more than Starks, in my opinion, because of his athletic ability, because of his pass rush skills and speed, and also because Starks is just not a tackler. Green, getting back to him, he finishes. He accelerates through contact, whether it's against the run or on a pass rush. Great closing speed. The 17 sacks at Marshall last year. He can win with speed on the top side, the outside rush. He's also got really good counter moves that complement those. He's the best athlete we have out there in this draft. Instant boost in talent and competition. Amazing value in round 2, regardless of all the other issues, right? There's very few or no opportunities to grab a consensus top 12, 15 player at pick at late, in round two, and I think that's just a very unique thing at pick 59. The Ravens passed on him at 27. I guess they thought Starks is the superior player because he played in the SEC, the totality of his accomplishments. Starks was All-American in 2023, had a great freshman season. 2022, a lot of great film. Don't get me wrong. So I'm just interested in the explanation in taking Green at 59 after passing on him at 27. Given that, I mean, we have to assume the Ravens had a first round grade on him, but that's just me, something that sticks out. The pick at the time that it occurred, it surprised me. I'm sure it probably surprised you. I think it caught others off guard as well, and I'll try to prove it to you. So, round two, we pick at 59. Originally, Detroit, the Lions, are going to pick at 60, one behind us. They trade up to 57 and they select Tate Radledge. The only thing that I can infer there is that they, the Lions, thought Baltimore was going to go guard in round two because, a lot of us think we need to improve there, or maybe we're going to go D tackle, right? Since uh, multiple other guys went immediately thereafter, after our pick. Shamar Turner and Norman Lott, both taken back-to-back at 62 and 63. And then the first selection of round three, another D tackle to the Giants, Darius Alexander. I think Eric DaCosta actually referenced the Chiefs with the Mike Green pick, basically saying he didn't want Green to end up there. Or maybe I heard it wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have taken Green at 59 at all. It's clear to me that in the front office's view, he would not be there. It looked like other teams thought we were going guard. Detroit trading up. I think they moved up 2 slots ahead of us. And it almost looks like to me the Ravens either didn't think Green would be there or, I know you're not going to like me saying this, weren't planning on taking him at 59 if he was. Nonetheless, he's better against the run than many have taken time to offer. Very violent, strikes tight ends, tackles or pulling. There's 2 plays of pulling O lineman against Marshall this year where he just absolutely obliterates guys. I like his effort, his willingness to get to the football. The Ohio State game, yeah, I mean, they blew out Marshall, but it reflected well for Mike Green in terms of stacking up against high-level talent. He didn't dominate those guys. There's, no reason to say it that way, but he played extremely well and showed that he belonged. Now, we do have to be real, however. The right tackle for Ohio State, not very good. He's just not. That's who Green was dealing with. Josh Simmons was on the other side. He actually played that game. He missed the rest of the year pretty much. I think he only played 6 games. We didn't get a single rep of Green against Josh Simmons. They were on opposite sides. That would have been a fantastic matchup. 2, clear-cut first-round talents just didn't occur that day, at least. I like not just Green's athleticism, his pursuit, willingness, and ability to close on the football. I like his strength and his lateral movement. I think he's going to be obviously he's going to be a better athlete than everyone he tackles as a quarterback, and then running backs, he's got the strength to bring them down as well. Very little usage as a pass dropper. So where does he play in our defense? I think it's obvious that Van Noy, Owe, and Tavius Robinson, they're going to be on the field a lot. Ojabo and Isaac, this clearly pushes them down, somewhere in that range. We have to move on from them. Isaac's got cheap contract for the next 3 years. Ojabo only has this one. Green's got to be on the field, right? But there's going to be a rotation, and that'll be an interesting way that Zach Orr and those guys handle it. He does not have experience dropping in coverage, so we can't say that he's skilled in that manner. If he did, well, first of all, if he did, that would be insane value as a pass rush guy against the run, solid. And he had the ability to drop into coverage and showed that ability as it stands. That that's not there. It's not there on film. He'll certainly be in the game on pass rush situations. Owe and Van Noy are deserving of that also. The reality is those guys are going to play a lot. Mike Green's not going to come in and start and play 55 snaps a game. Those guys will all be used together. But we're filthy rich now at outside linebacker. It's a good problem to have, right? It's very similar to wide receiver and tight end on offense. We just have an insane amount of depth there, talent there, and we have guys with relative strength in different areas, right? Tavius Robinson is a different player than Mike Green. They'll be deployed in a different manner. I do love that we have Van Noy in this group. If you take Van Noy out of this group, it's a different group, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. Here's a couple. First, he can still play. He's got 21 and a half sacks in 30 games played in Baltimore. Get out of here with that Baltimore doesn't get to the quarterback shit. You've got a guy who's got 21 sacks in 30 games. That's ridiculous. Yes, at some point, he'll have to slow down. Sure, he will. He hasn't shown any signs of it yet. He's a no bullshit kind of football guy. And look, I have no indication that Mike Green is or ever has been any kind of problem on the football field at all. But if he were, um, Kyle Van Noy being around with his experience and his high level of motivation and level of play, again, 21 and a half sacks in 2 years, I wouldn't think it'd be an issue anyway. Uh, Strategic rotation of outside linebackers is going to provide just dynamic options for Orr with that group. Owe, Van Noy, T. Rob, Mike Green, Ojabo, Adisa Isaac. It's, again, comparable to our wide receiver tight end group, in my opinion. I do want to say that there was a period of time in the draft on Saturday that it reminded me of last year's draft, meaning we had Starks and Green secured, and they would be this year's version of Wiggins and Rosengarten in that it's top heavy, and you've got two players, number one and number two hitter, guys that are going to start, guys that are going to play and contribute, but we didn't really seem motivated to improve certain obvious positions of need, really after the Emory Jones pick at 91. So recapping last year, you got Wiggins and Rosengarten as your first two, and then, Isaac, Walker, Tampa, Ali, Leary, Samac, and Kane. Certainly huge drop-off, which you would expect in talent. I'm comparing this year's draft to last year's. It felt similar at that time. There's a part of me that thinks, however, in 1 year or maybe two, this draft haul looks completely different than I thought in that moment. Meaning, we do have guys that can contribute this year if called upon. Emory Jones, first of all. I think he's 21 years old. I think he turns 22 in July, but I might have the wrong player's birth date remembered there. Played in the SEC, right? Actually started. Somebody in Ken's stream on Saturday made the point, he started in the SEC at age 19. That's ridiculous. Significant ability and experience there. Movement ability laterally. I liked his film. He can move right or left. One thing to mention, when he did have losses in pass pro at right tackle, they were quick. They were sudden losses. And that's not a good thing, right? Obviously, I mean that if he loses in pass pro, it seems to happen immediately, and it's not on the second engagement. From that standpoint, that reminds me of Falele, because when Falele loses, he loses immediately. And it's not that there's so many losses. It's just that the types of losses are different. It's like, to use a combat sports analogy, it's a guy who gets knocked out in the first round instead of losing by a 5-round decision. But for Jones, there's just not that many losses out there. And he did play in the SEC against some super talented guys out there on the edge. I like where we got him at pick 91. That seems about right to me, meaning credit to Eric DeCosta and those guys for picking him where they did. There were a lot of projections who had him later, a late 4th-round guy, maybe even 5th. That didn't make sense to me at all. There's other linemen of a similar quality that are taken earlier in round 3. In fact, Wyatt Millam, Dylan Fairchild, they were taken, I believe, like 8 to 10 picks higher than him. So for us to get Jones where we did, I think is appropriate. Was there other players on the board at offensive line who could help us, and maybe even defensive tackles? I mean, if you want to mention them, Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant, the center from Georgia, Jared Wilson, who some people think could play guard, could play center, and they had him maybe mocked to us. Those guys are available. Deani Walker, the defensive tackle from Kentucky, I didn't like him as much as many other people evaluated. Other D tackles, Robinson from Nebraska, very good player. C.J. West from Indiana. There was also, I think the very next pick, or maybe 2 picks later, was David Walker, the edge, like 6'2", 260, almost like a little bit of a Pernell McPhee reminder there. So there was good options. I like the Emory Jones pick at 91. We did grab another offensive line prospect, developmental, clearly, in Carson Vinson later on. I did think that maybe we left D-tackle talent on the board. We waited a long time to address that position. Eventually, we took Aeneas Peebles, right? And he's a good pass rusher. He's got a really nice spin move. Somewhat undersized guy, right, at 285. Certainly not a guy that we think will be in there on rundowns, and not great on double teams or combos either from the limited film that I saw. I would say that's a relative weakness of him. Against certain competition, against the run, it didn't show up. Against other teams, it kind of did. It's still a good selection. I'm glad we got him, right? It's because it seemed like we weren't going to deal with D-tackle at all. Kind of skipping back here to round 4, that whole situation, 129, 126, it was confusing for me. It still is, in fact. And I like Teddy Buchanan. Like I said, while scouting Noah Williams, thanks to Ken's suggestion, I noticed Buchanan. You're welcome to go look in the Google Drive that I'll link up and check it out, see the dates are added, and that kind of confirms when and where I noticed him and thought that it was worthy of of saving some of his plays. Very smart, Buchanan. Physical, plays well in space. A lot of apex inside linebacker stuff. That's where they like widen up and split the difference between the tackle and an inside receiver. Cal did use him to line up on the edge a little bit, but I don't think this is a guy that's drafted to replace or compete with Simpson necessarily. I think he's drafted to possibly be the next Malik Harrison. And what I mean by that is a guy who can play inside linebacker and outside linebacker to the boundary, which, yes, that is where Simpson plays, but be less predictable in terms of what he does post snap. Simpson does those same things. Buchanan had 5 sacks at Cal. He also had like 119 tackles. So I really like the player. He stood out on film, like I said, enough such that I grabbed some plays of him. You can go watch that if you wish. He's very active, hostile, gets to the football. He's very agile. And when he does get to the ball, he arrives with bad intentions. Let me give a caveat here, though. If you check out the Syracuse game, it's a team that's physical. They run the ball. They did get up to Buchanan some with the offensive lineman and the tight end. He's a good player, smart, but he did not absolutely overwhelm me from a run defense standpoint. So there is where the Malik Harrison analogy breaks down. And certainly as an edge defender, he does not look like a great run stopper out on the edge like Malik Harrison was into the boundary. Took him at 129. That took me by surprise. I don't know about you. Joshua Farmer, the D tackle from Florida State, still there. Tonka Hemingway is probably a more balanced D tackle than Peebles, but maybe not as effective consistently in the pass game as Peebles. He's there when we take Buchanan. Malaki Moore is taken 1 or maybe 2 picks later. He's a very feisty, fiery safety / nickel corner from Alabama. He went to the Jets, right? And there's concerns about his attitude and ability to react in an emotional manner that's appropriate. There's no way he goes to the New York Jets and acts unprofessional with Aaron Glenn in the room, right? Another hybrid guy was taken 3 or 4 picks later. That's K. Robinson. He's probably another guy that was considered by Baltimore. He's a hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker. Alabama used him in a very unique manner. Edge defender sometimes, but then they would move him in and he'd play this like inside linebacker position. It was only like 2 yards off the ball. It was very interesting, almost like a 3-3 look, except he was kicked over to one side. I can't say which guy I like better. Actually, I guess from the film, and it's limited, I like Buchanan better. He's longer than Robinson, bigger, more athletic, possibly better inside linebacker skills, and better in coverage than Robinson. But I understand there might be people who like the Alabama guy better. But let's get back to 129, 136. I'm not sure that looks good, trading out of 136, given the significant investment that other teams made in defensive tackle and offensive line in this draft. Meaning what was there to be taken from 129 to 178 the next time we finally did pick. I know we took Vincent at 141, right? Could have taken him at 136. Probably don't need to take him at 136. I'm not in the business here of just blindly supporting what the Ravens do, nor am I just trying to provide doom. I'm trying to provide balance in my opinion, and you may or may not like it. Look, the Ravens front office is one of the best out there, right? At restocking talent, developing it, clearly. But from 129, there were 6 D tackles taken in like the next 14 or 15 picks. Jordan Phillips, Ty Hamilton, Cam Jackson, right? In the interim, we took Carson Vincent. Fine. I'm glad that we grabbed offensive line. We went offensive line for 2 of our first 5 picks with, Emory Jones is the guy who's more ready to help as opposed to Vincent. There was guys at 136, however, that could have added more depth and development and skill for 2025 than Carson Vincent. To act like everything we do is infallible, I'm just not into that. Hamilton and Phillips, they're going to get plays on the field at D tackle this year. I like Marcus Bow. better than others. I guess he's just too small for a lot of NFL teams. He wasn't taken until after Vincent, so I just disagree with that. The level of effectiveness. I think he's a guard. Plays very good in inside zone scheme. But from a Ravens perspective, we probably don't want a Marcus Bow next to a smaller center like Linderbaum, assuming that we keep Linderbaum, long term. There's also Miles Frazier from LSU. I thought he could be on our board, a guard as a depth guy, play in the future, someone who's there in case things go wrong in a particular game from an injury standpoint. As it stands or as it stood, we took Buchanan, traded back from 136, and then it went crazy, right? We traded back from 136 to get 178. So we moved up 5 spots from 183. And then we traded our own 176 after selecting Vincent. I mean, if there's a guy that we'll take at 141, Vincent, why aren't we just taking him at 136? And then, what we ended up doing there, I don't know, do we save $60,000 over the course of a 4-year contract or 40,000, whatever, I guess we do. And then we did add a 2026 pick from 176, trading away from it. I love that mentality. That's a move. I can go from one way to the other and being critical or somewhat critical, maybe overly so, in your opinion, to really enjoying the fact that we moved up in next year's draft from a 6 and added another 5th. That seemed easy to do. I have no idea why it's not done or utilized more often. I guess maybe you can't go to that well too often as a front office because then other teams just won't, they won't field your call eventually because they know what you're trying to do. We did really get rolling in round 6. I like Bill Alconey. Solid corner from Western Michigan. Strong, plays into the boundary. He's got a nasty streak. Super competitive. I like his game a lot. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Max Melton from Rutgers 2 years ago. I like Coney's game, and I look forward to seeing him compete in the preseason and hopefully develop. He's a good tackler, one that he showed well for himself against Wisconsin and Ohio State. And that's my thought is that probably stuck out to the Ravens. We got the kicker, Loop. We knew we were going to draft one, right? In this case, we waited until another team had taken a kicker, and then we got a guy. It makes sense, right? With all the 6-round picks, why be the first team to take a kicker? If we felt there was 4 or 5 useful kickers in this roster. So kudos for the Ravens front office for waiting and doing so as a reaction to the first kicker being off the board. I was pleased we took another guard in the 7th round, the LSU guy Dellinger. I think he's originally from Maryland, maybe moved in high school or just before that. He's a good player. Longer Beam is the nickel from Rutgers. I do enjoy the brand of football that Rutgers plays. I know that they're not, tremendously successful in the Big Ten from the standpoint of winning the conference or whatever, but they play a good brand of defense there, in my opinion. I enjoyed Melton watching his film last year, and Longer Beam is a guy who's really cut from the same cloth. I think 30 or 31 passes defensed in the last 3 years. Peebles a nice find late as well. Pretty sure we're bringing Brent Urban back. We should try to, right? He can contribute. We know that, and he's someone that exists in a separate place as a veteran on the roster, meaning the composition of how they can cut him and then bring him back is easier to do. I really do like this draft overall. It felt more complete once we got rolling in round 6. My analogy that I used on Ken's show, his stream Saturday, was we're like a runner in the 400. And if you've never run the 400 or been around it in track, this analogy probably doesn't work for you. But if you have, you get it, right? Some people can't do the 400. They can do the 100, 200, but the 400 is a different thing. It's its own entity. We're the 400 runner who was supposed to close in the final 120 or 150, meaning our start, we might be in the middle of the pack, and then we're going to begin our close, 120 or 150 back. And that's our strategy. That's what people know we do. We start, average or maybe a little slower, but we close on the leader, and we bring that pressure in the last 40 or 50 meters as the finish line nears. There's if you've never run track and you don't understand what I mean, my apologies, but, that pressure of being first or second and knowing that guy is coming. He's closing. In this case, I thought that was going to start at the 129, 136 mark. Pick numbers, right? With our obvious needs at D tackle and then O-line depth. It felt like we made our move a little later than expected, basically is what I'm saying. Like we didn't begin to close until about 70 meters left in the race. instead of starting to gain ground with 120. I don't know what your analogy is. You're welcome to let me know in the comment section. We did close. It just took a little longer for in my mind than I thought the way that it was going to turn out. The Ravens probably had a pool of players. I think Ken pointed it out, and a couple of other people did too, that they felt comfortable with anyone from that group of 30 or 40 players, and so they felt comfortable moving back. And in fact, for next year's draft, moving up one from 6th to 5th. I do really feel good about the draft now. Is it still as similar in my mind to 2024? Where Wiggins and Rosengarten are 1A or 1 and 2. They give us great contributions. I'm not so sure. We did have multiple guys there selected afterwards that we knew weren't going to contribute immediately. Tez Walker did have the one manufactured TD last year for him. Great catch, I think, against the Giants. Samek, good college football player at center for Michigan State. Sanusi Kane, we know he's going to be a special teams guy, hopefully for a while. There does seem to be a similar lull, maybe, in those two drafts, around the same place, I guess. Round 3, 4, maybe early 5, something like that. It could also be related to, where we pick, right? I wonder if we were scrambling a little bit because the Mike Green pick threw off our course. I mean, for all the talk of BPA, and we follow the board, we do have positional needs, and Mike Green kind of threw that off a little bit and was just too much to pass up. It's the second year in a row, basically, where I felt like the middle portion of the draft, we are kind of forced to maybe deviate from our plan. And look, the draft is unpredictable. I get it, right? We can't get every good player in the draft. We can't get every good player that we want. There's just a lot of talent, but as fans, we should expect our front office to scoop up as many as possible, and they did that. They did add significant talent in the form of first 2 guys that'll be immediate starters and get a lot of snaps, but it's on defense, right? And that's my main complaint here that I'm going to finish with. And you may not have those complaints. I get it. Neither of those additions, the first 2, is on the O-line or the D-line. We did kind of regain some ground by getting Emory Jones at 91. I think those are places we needed improvement and or depth, if not immediate options. So let's start with D-tackle. We've got 2 really great ones, right? Matabike and Travis Jones. Pierce retired. That's a big loss. Broderick Washington was around last year. We're at least -1 there, right? This D-tackle spot might have been a miss in this draft, and that's even if we add Urban. We could have got a Farmer, a Hamilton. It really depends on what Peebles is able to provide, or if there's a veteran in the works that we have agreed to bring in. Basically, Peebles and Urban are question marks at this point. So the way the defensive tackle looks like right now, it looks like we may have missed an opportunity at that spot to address it, in a maybe more serious manner. Now, we did take 3 offensive linemen, right? I think it's the first time since 2017, maybe 16, I'm not sure, that we've taken 3 offensive linemen. But in reality, Vincent's developmental. Jones might get a chance to compete at guard. And Dellinger, is, while being a good player and one that's versatile, I think he played right guard and left guard. He's a 7th-round pick. So let me sum this up a little bit. And unfortunately, I have to use the Chiefs a little bit to do so. The Chiefs took Josh Simmons at the end of round 1. Right? Keep in mind, a year ago, they took Kingsley Suamatea in round 2, 1 pick after we took Rosengarten. You would think that if we had taken someone else, the Chiefs are probably taking Rosengarten last year. After going Josh Simmons 1 year after selecting Kingsley, the Chiefs go Norman Lott, the D tackle from, I think, Tennessee in round 2. And then they add another D-end edge rusher in round 3. So first 3 picks are either addressing the front 7 on defense or the offensive line. So I do wonder if this draft for the Ravens has a high degree of variability, meaning in 1 year, if Emory Jones can be a solid guard, and at minimum he gives us options for competition for Falele and Cleveland and Voorhees, then that's great. That's a win for us at 91. I think the Ravens front office does believe that Falele, Cleveland, and Voorhees are enough to get the job done at guard. Additionally, I think there's pressure on Starks here. Now I don't mean like he's got to go out there and get a bunch of interceptions, but he's got to live up to being the first round pick. This draft very much needs him to play like the 2024 version of Wiggins. Basically, be out on the field, competing, giving us solid reps, which I think Starks is fully capable of doing. Um, because there's a lot of guys that we don't expect any contribution from at all in 2025 and possibly even 2026. Vincent, Buchanan, Bilal Kone, and others. I do like the group of players, but I cannot lie to you. I'm a little bit less impressed with our round one pick than I really dating back to essentially Owe, who had the insane athletic testing. Now, Starks does play fast, a lot faster than the testing indicates. So, excuse me, I don't care about the athletic testing. I really don't. He's got film of solid coverage. He's got film in high pressure moments. There are some situations, however, against Alabama, Georgia Tech, and others where he does not look like a first round player. So for me, I have to admit that I don't grade players. If I was to provide a range, and I did in our Discord say that I thought Starks would be a guy that would get drafted from like 25 to 38, somewhere in that range. I don't think he fell to us at 27. That's just not my opinion. You may have a different one than I do. I think he was drafted uh, at the early portion of the range in which he should have been. He's very good in half field coverages and he knows what to do. So I don't think for 2025, Starks has got to go out there and get 3 or 4 interceptions in order for this year's draft, 2025, to live up to 2024, which, let's be honest, after the first 2 picks wasn't that good. Because we did leave a lot of high quality offensive line and D tackles on board this year. We'll see how it works out, right? Some of the players we didn't draft at O line and D tackle, if they come out and perform well and we left them on the board, then we deserve criticism, right? So for me, in the end, I have to give this draft a B plus to maybe an A minus, and that's with the caveat that Mike Green is what pushes it there. Otherwise, I guess in reality, we take a good offensive lineman or D tackle at 59 if Green is not there. I get that perspective as well. This is an enjoyable draft process that on Saturday there was about an hour and a half stretch, became less so. I hope you were able to check out, as much of the Ravens coverage as possible, be it, Ken's stream on Saturday or the one that, other people have done or what I did on Thursday night. This was a huge build up and kind of, for me at least, reached a crescendo for the Ravens with the Green pick in round 2. Getting that type of talent in round 2, along with Starks, is simply amazing. And it's understandable that everything thereafter wouldn't live up to that crescendo. And from a fan's perspective, or trying to analyze it like I am, as fun as it was, and to see that pick be there, I can't help but think that maybe we left opportunities out to improve the offensive line and the defensive line group. Because the reality is, we're going to win or lose big games by the moments that Lamar Jackson creates or executes. And creating as high a level offensive line as possible, for me, should be a priority for this team. Emory Jones, Vincent, the 7th round guy. Not sure we get to that part. Additionally, waiting to address D tackle in the 6th round does kind of pull things down for me, and that's why I'm not as quick to label this, hey, this is another Ravens A or A plus draft. That's just not the way I see it. B plus, A minus is where I would go. You're welcome to have a different opinion and let me know what you think in the comment section of my overall evaluation or any of the things I said about the players that Eric DeCosta and the front office grabbed in the 2025 NFL draft. If you guys think other Ravens fans would enjoy my draft review, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.